Οι ομιλίες που προηγήθηκαν έδωσαν μια εξόχως ικανοποιητική, χορταστική θα τολμούσα να πω, επίγευση γνώσης περί της τέταρτης βιομηχανικής επανάστασης και της σημασίας του ψηφιακού μετασχηματισμού για την υλοποίηση στρατηγικών και την ευόδοση των στόχων που έχουν προηγουμένως τεθεί. Αναπόφευκτα, γεννάται το ερώτημα σχετικά με το ποια είναι τα κέρια σημεία που οφείλουν να προσεχθούν κατά τη διαδικασία της αλλαγής και του εν γέννη μετασχηματισμού. Με ποιο τρόπο τα εντάσσουμε στον ευρύτερο σχεδιασμό μας και πώς διασφαλίζουμε την επιτυχία του όλου εγχειρήματος. Ο κύριος Joachim Hensch, Chief Transformation Officer και ιδιοκτήτης της ομώνυμης συμβουλευτικής εταιρείας, θα μας σκετελίσει τις πτυχές ενός πιστικού blueprint. Mr. Hensch, good morning from Athens. How are you?
Good morning, good morning. I see the sun is shining in Greece as well as in Germany.
Yes, that's something good, and
yes,
we respect and jointly, have the chance to enjoy it.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, carry on, please.
Yes, so I'm going to start. So thank you very much. So I'm going to show my screen here, and I hope everyone can see this. So the title of this presentation is "Should I Stay or Should I Go?" And of course, this is an old music title from The Clash, and I really love this title because it very much shows the dilemma in which the industry is. And boosted by this global pandemic, it's even more a dilemma because there are some very good practices. There are some business principles who made it really into a very mature status. At the same time, we live in a world of an unbelievable change, and we have a boost of digitalization, which was already in its days in the last years, but now with COVID, it was even boosted more. So we were kind of digitized by force, so to say. And in my presentation, I wanted to give some thoughts about what this might mean for us when we think about Industry 4.0 and how this plays out. So probably you have seen this video, or you remember the left one, actually. The left one was a real one. The right one is a comedy then later on. Like 2 years ago, if we would have a video conference and someone would have popped in or something would have happened with the children or something like that, everyone would be shocked, like on the left side, the mother is taking the children and everyone is so embarrassed. And after COVID, basically everyone gets used to. We all have seen the funny videos of people not taking down the camera when going to the toilet or the kitchen or something like that. So things have changed somehow in the way how we see new media and new technology. And why I'm saying this is because we had a tendency of only going live when something is really great and when something is really working well. But it turns out that this is not fast enough anymore. And as much as I'm coming from, my background is a tailor, so I was sitting on a table and spending 60 hours to literally sew or produce a suit by hand. And everything was about experience, of course, and everything was about expertise and perfection at that time. But nowadays we live in times where it turns out that the betas, the ones who have a close to, say, 80 or 90% solution, when they are out and they make the deal. And that is one thing that I really learned from this pandemic here is that, yes, we will, of course, always strive for perfection and is a bit provoking saying, okay, stop being perfect. But we had this situation before that we were always aiming for the 100%, and we have to even more ask ourselves, are we living in times anymore where we can afford to spend this time for being perfect? Or do we have to look closer maybe and think about a solution that is good enough to to convince customers or to convince your peers or colleagues to go live. And that is something that I see more and more coming, because we are trained by impatience from Amazon and Alibaba and others. So that's one big statement that I would make of the learning of the recent years, is that we cannot study everything to perfection before we go live. And another reason for that is that we live in a world which is really hyper-connected. Now, when I started as a tailor, I had a one-on-one connection to my customer, because there was one customer and there was one suit. So it was a very close collaboration, and we knew everything about each other. And so there was a lot of trust, and it was a clear order and a clear situation between customer and producer. Then in the 80s, 90s, the big brands appeared, and it looked like customers were just following brands, but they were like anonymous. They were not visible. And with the rising social media, and especially in the last years, the customer got a voice again. So we live today in a world where everything is everywhere, and if what happens everywhere on this planet is in the media 5 minutes later, and if it catches attention, then it's going around the globe in a fraction of a second. So the customer has a much more powerful position and a much more demanding position than he had ever before. And that is, again, something that we have to take into consideration when thinking about production and producing things. We have a customer landscape in the apparel industry, which is more and more personalized. Now, people talked about hyper-personalization for long. And there were lots of attempts and lots of ideas about mass customization in the recent years, but it didn't fly really, Nowadays, it's much more flying, because the demand, everyone understood with full warehouses running into the pandemic, it's not so smart to run on a lot of assets which are unsold, and maybe no one will buy anymore in the future, because then the seasons are gone. And secondly, every customer nowadays has a voice in social media and has his own personal wish so they want to belong to a brand, but at the same time, they want to do something, they want to have something for themselves, which is the rise of capsule collections. You see lots of capsule collections nowadays. Brands try to estimate the needs and the wants of particular groups of customers, and then they produce something for them. So is more, yes, we have still the seasons that we see, but it's more of really like going into more detail. And when it comes to Industry 4.0 and when it comes to production, that's spot on the topic here. The strategy is really to have a production which can do this on scale and stay profitable. So that's something that I think organizations have to really think about. Now, that sale drives the business. And there's a saying from Y Combinator which says, make something people want and are willing to pay for. And we have to, I have a lot of customers that I talk to in Asia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and others. And of course, they are used to be the big sewing machines, like 100,000 T-shirts in one color and 3 sizes or something like that. But these orders are fading, and the organizations are not made for this, which means like the capacity and the complexity fluctuation is rising dramatically. And for companies who are not organized, or let's say companies who are analog organized, that's an actual problem, because there are lots and lots of model changeover, downtimes, and other obstacles like skill sets and such, which drive this production dilemma. For sure, there is not one size. One size cannot fit all. There is a singular situation everywhere. Every company has its own solution or own problem and needs his own or her own solution. And that is something that I found out also personally when I was managing director in Izmir, that you can buy a lot of stuff from the market, like ready-made software or robotics and whatsoever, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it fits into your organization or your particular case. So that's something that for sure is very important. And besides this, what also was my experience from the last years was that close to the operational excellence that everyone learned from Toyota, there is a new upcoming digital excellence needed. It's not that you can just buy some IT stuff and make some installations and you are a digital, like you are an Industry 4.0 production. That's not how it works. It's very much that you have to establish a certain knowledge and an expertise about your digital twin and your digital ecosystem to really understand the value of this. And so what I believe is that probably you have had this also in your organizations, that you have a quality problem, you had a quality issue, okay, let's buy a quality management software. We have a problem on the shop floor, okay, let's buy an MES system. We have something with HR, okay, let's put some bits and pieces and investments in HR software. What this means is that you have a bunch of different single solution applications or single solution processes that don't match to each other. And what I found out in these 5 years in Izmir was that really it is important first to have a big picture to understand what everything is about. And I put these puzzle jigsaw pieces because probably everyone of you has done this. And typically how you do this, if you want to be fast in jigsaw puzzling, then the first thing that you do is you build the frame. You look for all the outside pieces and you build the frame. And then you of course, many people sort by colors first, but then you start making assembly of the middle part. And there's nothing different with Industry 4.0. First, you need to understand your frame, your personal story about all these 5 topics here. Customer structure. Do you have 1 or do you have 50 customers? Sales-driven supply chain. Is your supply chain, is it able to change based on the variation of the sales? Do you have an organization that is empowered? Like, who in your organization has access to data, and who in your organization can have ideas? And as I said before, operational and digital excellence is super important, really understanding the topics. And of course, everything starts with a big picture leadership. If you don't have an overall idea about your Industry 4.0 journey, then it will be quite problematic to invest into the right topics. And so what I always say is, and that is it's also a very important personal learning, like, don't invest in the museum of tomorrow. What quite often happens is that you start a project and this project is run in waterfall. So you make like a 12-month plan. And after 6 months or 7 months or 8 months, you start to understand that it's not going to fly. But because you have put already so many resources into it and you have put already so many money into it, you continue investing in it until it is finished, only to learn that like 6 months later, it's obsolete because the world has changed. So something that is super important here when it comes to this development of the Industry 4.0 approach is really to understand where your organization is. Are you customer centric? Do you know what you do? Do you have your engineering fundamentals ready? Do you have a lean approach already, or is this something that you have to first install? The organizational transformation is something that I'm going to talk in a minute, and smart operations as well. So it is very important to know where you are and then not rush into something like, okay, let's buy something digital, but really to first understand what you may do and what you may stop doing, which is quite cumbersome. I know this because we had also in 2015, when I started in Izmir, we had to make some harsh decisions to stop projects which were quite expensive. Now, when it comes to production, unfortunately, digital connection stops. And it is a little bit like my family holiday in Israel, where I was in Tel Aviv and everything is hyper connected, everything is great. And then you go you go into it takes you 1 or 2 hours to drive outside and you're in the desert and nothing is connected anymore. And surprisingly, in organization, it's very much the same. You have organizations where the customer, I mean the merchandisers are working with CRM systems. The salespeople have everything ready. SAP may be installed for the ERP systems and such. And then you go into the production line, and then everyone is working on paper, and you ask yourself, what's going on here? Why is that so? And then very often you hear stories about, maybe because the people are not educated enough. But guess what? Every one of these people has a smartphone and they know how to use WhatsApp. So it's interesting that on the shop floor still there is so low digital ecosystems. And it is more interesting when you think about the world that we're living right now. So everyone knows that Google knows everything about us. Whatever we run a Google advertisement or we run analyzes, Google Analytics, you have your dashboard, you know everything about everyone. If I go, if I watch my website, I know everyone, where my visitors come from, how long they stayed on the point to the second, where the people jump in, where they jump out. I know everything, and then I think about and then I go back to my company and say, okay, I know nothing. I know only quality data from yesterday, or maybe, I don't know. So that is something that I would like to put into your mind. Like, what if you would understand your organization like Google understands you? That, for me, would be a very astounding situation, and something that is possible because we did this in Izmir. Sorry. Something that I also am that I also understood painfully is that if you start digitizing and you have an analog messy situation, so you have not done this, as I said before, the lean principles, you have not organized your analog world, your physical factory, your physical organization, and then you put digitalization on top of it, then you end up having two messy situations. And I can tell you that this is really painful, because a digital, an unsorted, like this desk here is something that is messy, but you can see all the bits and pieces and you can order it and you can sort it if you wish. If you have a digital messy situation, this is a huge chaos, and it is really not easy to organize this. So what I always would say is clean the mess first in your analog organization, then digitize and build a clean digital copy of this for your Industry 4.0 journey. And then I would like to turn your attention to something completely different, which is something that we call 3D space planning. And I'm saying this because I was in 2017, I was in Fremont at the Tesla factory. And I was not expecting a super excellence, operational excellence production, because everyone was claiming about, made complaints about quality and such. But what I saw were 1,600 software engineers sitting there and programming software for this car. And I'm driving a Tesla since 1.5 years, and I know why they do this. And the thing why I'm saying this is we had also, when we were looking into our factory, we thought, of course, about all the operational excellence topics that were on the ground. But I remember that there was a quote from Elon Musk saying that the factory is actually a machine that builds a machine. And he was talking about the volume of a factory. And I came back and said, okay, let's measure the volume of the factory. And we measured 9% of usage. So 91% of the factory was actually air, empty, nothing. And we thought, okay, this is crazy. We have huge building and everything is made, even automation machines are made for people to watch them. So they are on the ground. Why do we do that? So we started thinking about 3D space planning and said, okay, maybe we can make use of this organization in a better way and use the volume. And so we started to think about transportation systems, and we started to think about storage, actually, and about how can we make use of the volume of the factory. And in some production areas, we doubled actually the usage, because as an example, the transportation systems we put up, or some storage of some inventory that we need, like shoulder pads, for example. We made some storage in the factory, and it played out well. And the interesting thing is that I just recently found a company that is doing this. It's called Bumblebee. It is an engineer who has worked for Tesla and for Apple, and he is building a complete, like the whole bedroom is on the roof of your building. So he puts everything up and thinks about using the space in a different way. And I'm saying this because when you do things differently, when you think about the Industry 4.0 approach, you have to think differently. You cannot copy your neighbor. You should always look different to what you have in your mind. And that puts me to your people. Because people have great ideas if you listen to them. And there's, this monotsukuri wa hitotsukuri kara, which is before making things, you should make people, which is like you have to really take care about your employees, no matter in what situation you are. And the reason is because things have changed. This was the organizational setup that I started working in 1990. 1995, I started to work for Hugo Boss, and for me, it was impossible to reach the CEO because he was way ahead of in the pyramid, and there was no connection at all. And that was a very traditional way of thinking, and also a way of knowledge. Like the knowledge, the higher it gets, the more information they have who are critical, and the rest is just dump. The situation nowadays is, and that is also something we learned in social media, that everyone is basically flat. Everyone has the same LinkedIn account, everyone has the same Twitter account, and as long as you have enough followers, you can do whatever you like with this. Which is very important to think about information flow in your organization, because this new generation of employees, they expect in the production the same that they have in their private life. They have no tolerance for not understanding or not getting information which in their private life they have all flat. Everyone is watching Wikipedia or YouTube videos or whatever, and then you go into a factory or you go into an organization and you have limited access to data. That's not accepted. So that's something that is really a very important thought when you think about the Industry 4.0 approach and being flat in your data structure and also in your organizational structure. And something that I guess one of the speakers also, I couldn't catch the translation, but some of the speakers talked about unlearning and learning, and that is, I think, a very fascinating topic. That in order to implement Industry 4.0, you realize very fast that there are skills in your organization that have a value, but there are also skills that are not there. And others, traditional skills that maybe have no value anymore, which means like we all have to accept the fact that whatever we have learned when we were young is probably commodity nowadays. And so we can, no matter if we are 20 or we are 50, we have to continue learning, always learning. And we have to also, that's why this unlearning concept is interesting, we have to make space in our heads. We have to disbelieve some topics so that we make space in our heads, and then we can start learning something new. And learning something has never been easier, never been more fun than today. And I'm talking to this gaming industry because there are lots of people saying we have to gamify learning. And we did really a lot. In Izmir, we did a lot of this, and the people learned basically in double the time. No, not double the time, half the time, double the speed. Sorry. And everyone nowadays is playing. I mean, the gaming industry has grown last year unbelievably, especially with COVID. Everyone is doing games, and so people are ready for this, no matter the age. And if you put content, like training content, into a game, then it is way faster that you will have your people with the right skills ready than when you go then comparing to traditional learning methodologies. So we, for example, we put augmented reality and virtual reality into the shop floor trainings, and the people loved it very much. So that's something that is super important when it comes to upskilling your people. And ultimately, this turns into an organization which is, we call it fluid organization, which is an organization which is fluid in terms of the flow of the information. It is fluid in terms of the flow of skills, like how many people do I have for particular operations, and is this enough? And if not, then I have to train them. And also in a fluid organization of responsibilities. So if we live in times, again, which are unpredictable, then I cannot build lines and saying, okay, I have 50% for my jackets and 50% for my trousers. And if I sell more jackets, then bad luck. That's the organization has to be so fluid that whatever the market does, the organization can respond to that and respond fast. Coming to my first, don't the betas pass by the experts. So ultimately, Industry 4.0 is helping to make an organization, that's my belief and my experience, to make an organization more agile and more fluid and more transparent, while at the same time staying profitable. And all that with the technology that Industry 4.0 provides, starting from the sensors, going to the big data, the analyzers that come with it, and then turning this into management decisions that then make the organization run. And my last slide is rather a call to action that whatever you do and wherever you are right now on your journey towards Industry 4.0, you should not wait. You should always do something, and therefore, even this week, think about what you learn on this conference and then go back to your team and think about something that you can put into action immediately. Is it learning something? Is it making some market research? Is it research on digital devices? Is it looking into your organization, your customer base, whatever, your smartness? But always think about the speed that this world is running at this time. And now everyone is saying that this speed, what we have today, is only half of the speed we will have in like 5 years' time. So think about your organization and start today. That would be my final slide. And by the way, if you scan the barcode, that's a documentary of a journey that we did together in Izmir. Thank you very much.
We thank you very much, Mr. Hens, for your interesting and full of thoughts presentation. A quick question, if I may.
Yes, sure, absolutely.
Is it accurate that the main message is that an organization, a business, has to make an honest and deep dive self-estimation in order to evolve and make the proper steps towards flourishing in the near future?
Absolutely. I mean, people call this assessment. A self-assessment. I call this "What's my smartness?" Because I mean, there are organizations right now who have invested in technology already, and other organizations have more or less invested. Some people have invested more in people. Some organizations have invested more in technology. So I guess what is very important as a first step is really understanding the current smartness of the organization and then building on that. That absolutely is crucial. Yes.